Welcome to our program, Change the World, presented to you by the Children of the World Choir. This program is dedicated to making a difference. Our guest today is a music legend with 13 gold and platinum records and songs that became classics, such as Love Letters in the Sand, such as April Love. Mr. Boone, welcome to Change the World.
Thank you, Marina. And it's a joy to be here. I really feel at home here because we've had a big family, Shirley and I, 4 daughters, and then we have more grandkids than all of these kids put together sitting here. We've got 15 grandkids, which I think is my best accomplishment, more than the records or the books or anything else. So it's great to be here.
So children want to know a lot about your life and your accomplishments.
Who would have the first question?
What inspired you to become a musician?
It was growing up in my family's home in Nashville, Tennessee. My parents were big Bing Crosby fans. Now, Bing Crosby, I don't know if any of you even know who Bing Crosby was, but he's just one of the best singers there ever was and one of the most popular. And this will surprise you, there was a time when I was growing up when there was no such thing as a teen or children's market. People didn't make music for kids. They just made music for adults, and kids learned to like whatever their parents liked. So I used to listen to Bing Crosby records because that's what my folks had. And I decided, boy, that would be great. He made it seem so easy and so much fun that he was my inspiration, Bing Crosby. Who else has a question? Here's one. Now we have to get the mic to you.
How did you get discovered?
I entered a national talent search program. You've all seen American Idol.
Yeah.
And this was sort of the forerunner of that. It was called Ted Mack's Amateur Hour. Everybody on the show was an amateur, and they came from all over the country. I won a contest in Nashville, singing in a local high school contest. That first prize was a trip to New York, audition with Ted Mack. I got on the show, and again, just like American Idol, the winner was selected each week by cards and letters, because we had no internet at that time. But I got more cards and letters each week for 3 weeks, so I was the winner 3 times, and that's as far as you would go. Then you would qualify to be on with other 3-time winners whenever they would have a finals show, which might be a year later, as it was for me. And I got on the final show, and was winning that, they tell me. But while I was in New York, thinking I would never be in New York City again, I went on a professional talent show and won that, which disqualified me from the amateur show, because you can't win a professional show on Monday and then an amateur show the following Saturday. So I was disqualified, and I thought, well, I've blown every chance I ever had. But that led to a recording contract about 8 months later, and my first record was a hit. Another question. Yes, sir, we need to get you a mic, okay?
What inspired you to making the music that you have reached so many people with?
Inspired me to make the music? Well, in some cases, I've just recorded songs that were made available to me. For instance, the theme song from the movie Exodus, which has become like the second Jewish national anthem, had only a melody. There were no words, and I wanted to sing it. So Frutti and Teicher had a big piano record of it, instrumental, and I wrote the words that it seemed to me the melody was saying, and I submitted that to the publisher, and he accepted my words, and that my words became the official lyric of that song, which has been very inspirational, not just to people of Israel, but to people in many countries, because the words say, "This land is mine. God gave this land to me." It's a song of national pride for whatever country you live in, you know, including America. But other songs I've written, like in answer to the man who's trying to take "under God" out of our Pledge of Allegiance, the 2 words "under God," and I think they belong there. So I've written a song. It's really like a musical history lesson, and it explains why those 2 words are in our Pledge of Allegiance to begin with. And it has made it to, as we say, 15 with a bullet in the Billboard Hot 100 single chart. I'm proud of that. Now, another question. Who would be next? Oh, another one.
What message are you trying to send through your music?
Good question. I think basically, overall, that we should be happy, that we should love each other, that life is good, that love is the power that does change the world, and you are in the business of changing the world, and you're the right ingredient to do it too. So basically, I sing love songs, whether they're up-tempo, fast-moving, even rock songs, or beautiful ballads, or inspirational themes. But I really like to sing about the joy of just being alive, having friends, family, and encourage people to love each other. Another question? Yes?
What advice do you have for other singers?
To please quit competing with me is the main. No, I'm. No. A lot of young singers ask me. You know, they have stars in their eyes. You know, and how can I get ahead? How can I be successful? And my 2 pieces of advice to them have always been: be yourself. Try not to copy somebody else, because you have a better chance of success if you don't sound like someone else. If you sound different. Be yourself, and I always add, make God your agent. Most every singer has to have an agent, somebody representing, looking out for, opening doors for that person, and God can do that better than anybody, so talk to Him. He gave you your abilities to begin with, and He knows how you can use them. I have a question for you. How old are you today?
I'm 11. Today's my birthday.
Today is your birthday. We ought to sing happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Jacques. Happy birthday to you. Did you know it was her birthday today?
No, we don't.
Is it Jacques?
Yeah.
Is that your name? Yeah, I thought so. Somebody squealed on you. Now, who has another question? Anybody? Ah, there's another one up front.
Are there any singers that you'd want to collaborate with?
Singers I'd like to collect. Oh boy, a lot of them, yeah. Tell you the ones I admire the most right now are Harry Connick Jr., James Taylor, Paul Simon, Diana Krall. Oh, she's good. Nora Jones is really good. And of course, it's not possible, but I love Placido Domingo, the great opera singer. To me, he is my favorite tenor. And I've asked him, by the way, when they do the next 3 Tenors television show, please sing the theme song from the movie Exodus. He didn't know that I wrote the words. And he said, oh, that's a good idea. So I hope he'll do that. Yes, you have a question too? Another?
Have you ever made any mistakes that led you to becoming more successful?
No, I've never made any mistakes. What's so funny? No, I've made plenty. And the question that, the answer that occurs to me, and it was so painful. I was just getting started. I was doing local television in Fort Worth, Texas, and I was in college at North Texas State in Denton, about 30 miles away. And I had the chance to go on a national television show that was originating just for the day in Fort Worth, and I overslept. As I remember it, the alarm clock didn't go off, but maybe it was just my fault, period, I don't know, but I broke the speed limit, I drove that 30 miles, and I got there, and I was late. And they'd already gotten somebody else to sing in my place. And they were going to pay me $25. Which, at that, I was married, we were expecting our first child, and I was going to buy my wife a second-hand television set. Well, because I was late, I did not get to sing, I did not make the money. And so, I have desperately tried my whole career not to be known as the late Pat Boone. Although one of these days I'm going to be known as that. Another question? Okay.
Your record sales almost equaled those of Elvis Presley. Did you have a chance to actually meet him?
Oh yeah, Elvis and I were friends. He, believe it or not, he was my warm-up act the first time we met. It was a sock hop, they used to call it, a dance, a teenage dance at a high school in Cleveland. And my second record, Ain't That a Shame, a rock and roll song, was on its way to #1. But it was just my second record, and the disc jockey that was having this big dance at the high school, when he met me at the airport, he says, "I've got a new fella coming up from Shreveport, Louisiana. He's going to be on ahead of you." I said, "Oh, who's that?" He said, "Well, you probably never heard of him, a guy named Elvis Presley." And I said, "Oh, I've heard of him. I've seen his records on a jukebox in Dallas, Texas. But he's a hillbilly. You don't want him on the show tonight, do you? I mean, this is rock and roll time." Because his first records were sort of what we call rockabilly. They were a combination of country and rock. He said, Bill Randall, the DJ, said, "Oh, I think he's got a future." So I met him backstage, and I held out my hand. "Hi, Elvis. I'm Pat Boone." And said, "Bill Randall says he thinks you've got a big future." "I don't know about this." He just mumbled something, and he seemed so shy. I thought, well, he can't be a performer. How can he do anything? But when he got on stage, he was a whole different guy, you know. And the girls went nuts, and I had to follow him. Fortunately, I had 2 hit records. I was only 6 months older than Elvis, but at least it enabled me to follow him. I never wanted to do that again. Later, when we got to be friends, I told him that first time we met, I thought he seemed so shy. He said, "Well, you were a star, man." I said, "Star? I had 2 records." He said, "Yeah, but you were on the charts." He said, "I didn't know what to say to you." But he got over his shyness. Now, who else has a question? Oh, 3 of you. Well, you ask one. You've been sitting there so quiet and nice.
What interests do you have outside of music?
Oh boy, good question. It's a problem with me. I have too many interests. I love sports. I love writing. I love various kinds of humanitarian endeavors. I have intended to play the guitar. I don't do it very well. I wanted to learn how to repair television sets, but I've never learned how to do that either. I thought surely someday I was going to free fall from a plane, fall without my chute, and open it later, hopefully sooner. But I never have done much of that. I have so many interests, but I'd say the main one is athletics. I love every kind of sport, which has been good for me, really. There were 3 hands that went up. Who else had a? Yeah, you haven't asked one yet, have you?
What was the happiest moments in your life or career?
Oh my goodness, happiest moment in my life or career?
Or both?
Well, I will tell you. Career moments, it's hard to pick. I mean, my first command performance before the Queen of England was a great moment. Appearing on the Ed Sullivan Show, with a #1 record was a great moment. Things like that. But the most thrilling moment of my life, you kids participated in. And it was the celebration of my 50th anniversary of the wedding to my wife, Shirley. We've been together now almost 51 years. And actually, we started dating in high school when we were 16, so it's more like 54 years. But you kids, many of you at least, sang on the song I wrote for my wife on our 50th anniversary called "You Made My Life a Love Song." And she'd never heard it. She didn't know I'd written this song. And I wrote it, and we were recording, and I thought, boy, I need some children's voices on this. And I called Marina. And I knew about the choir, because the Children of the World, because I'd heard the group sing at a big tourism convention. I knew that you kids could sing beautifully, and asked if Marina, would you possibly be interested in singing on this song of dedication to my wife after 50 years of marriage? And some of you did. You've already told me you were in that group and sang. Beautiful. I cried, my wife cried, everybody there cried, but we still had to pay the bill. Who else had oh, did you have a question?
How has music changed you as a person?
Wow. That's an interesting question. Certainly it shaped the direction of my life. My mom, nobody in my family had ever been a professional entertainer of any type, but my mother played a ukulele, just a 4-string ukulele, and she taught my brother and me to play a few chords and sing some songs in harmony. And I learned that I enjoyed singing, and that I enjoyed other people enjoying me sing. And so even as a kid, it was something that I thought I'd really like to do my whole life. I didn't think it was possible. I didn't have any contacts. I didn't know anybody. That's when I made God my agent and prayed about it. Doors opened. I thought I was going to be a school teacher. That never happened. But I've written books that wound up in every high school library. So in a way, I had become a teacher. But the singing and my love of music, goodness, it has been my career, my profession. It's paid for my girls' education and their weddings, because it's some barbaric custom that fathers get to pay for their daughters' weddings. No matter what they cost, Daddy has to pay. And so the money that I have made as a singer helped me get 4 daughters married happily, and now helping get 15 grandkids through school. Another question. Ah, yes.
Can you tell us about your involvement in the Easter Seal Project?
Gladly. The Easter Seal, that is, almost was an answer to one of the questions. It's the proudest accomplishment of my life, because I was asked to host just one year the Easter Seal Telethon. You know, it was a 20-hour ordeal, it was then. You have to be on live television for 20 hours. And you sing songs, and you introduce people, and you ask questions, and you go on and on and on, and you're totally exhausted, and you have to keep going. And but you raise lots of money for children mainly, but adults too with disabilities. And in the course of 18 years, I think it was. I think somebody here said 11. You said 11 years. I think I actually hosted it for 18 years. Because we raised $600 million to help kids with disabilities of all types, kids born with all kinds of problems and disabilities, and parents and older people and blind and stroke victims, and so to have been given that privilege, really, that opportunity to work with Easter Seals is I think the sweetest and the most major accomplishment of my life, apart from records or movies or anything like that. I consider all those things sort of a means to an end.
Roberto needs to ask you.
Let's let this young man here who's been so polite ask me a question.
Yeah. Could you please tell us about the books you've written?
Well, again, it would take too long, really, because I've written about, I don't know, I've lost count, 15, 16 books. Most of them, though, are books about my spiritual journey, about things I've been learning. The first book, I was still in college, and I was asked to write a book for teenagers to give some kind of helpful advice to teens. And here I was barely out of my own teens, but I was getting some 5,000 letters a week from fans, and many of them were asking me my advice about problems that they had. So I was trying to answer those seriously, and I thought, hey, if I write a book, I can answer many of those questions that I keep getting, you know, and repeated over and over. I can just answer them once in a book, and I would give all the proceeds to a startup would-be Christian college in Philadelphia. They hadn't opened yet, but they were trying to raise money, so I'll contribute the money to that school and maybe kill 2 birds with 1 stone, which is not a very good phrase, but the only thing that occurred to me. Accomplish 2 purposes at once is a better. And so I really concentrated on writing this book called Twixt 12 and 20. I didn't want to say teenager because it sounded like, I don't know, it sounded like teenagers were being used or classified some way. So I just called it Twixt 12 and 20, which still says sort of between those 2 ages, you know. Tongue twister, but the book became the #1 nonfiction bestseller for 2 years. I was still in college, And the proceeds went to this school, Northeastern Institute for Christian Education. The acronym is NICE, N-I-C-E. And it helped them open. It was almost, well, $1.25 million, $1,250,000 royalties. Well, I was very pleased about that because I'd wanted to be a teacher, you know, I thought. So in a way, I became a teacher through that book. But then there have been at least 15 other books since then about Christmas, about raising a family, about my career, about spiritual journey, and all these things. So I'm just pleased that some people at least are interested in what I have to say. Yes, birthday girl. Oh, she has to have a mic. Can we get a mic there?
You won many platinum and gold records. Did fame ever change your life?
Good question. Yes, certainly. I mean, they pay you when you sell that many records. They may not pay you all that you're owed, but they do pay you. And so, of course, that made it possible for us to have a nice house and nice car, and for my girls to go to school, and for us to have something to eat, and all these things. So that's been a great blessing. Sometimes when people ask that question, they really mean, did it have a negative effect on you? Did you lose your way, or did it go to your head? Did you become a different person? But in my case, I was so fortunate because I was married to my childhood sweetheart. We had kids, 4 kids by the time I got out of college. We never quit going to church. I was always very active in our church and church activities. So that kept reminding me who I am. And I didn't get this notion that I was somehow special because I had sold some records or made some movies. I was still just a guy being very, very fortunate, working hard, but being very fortunate and blessed with a great family. So it changed me in nice ways. I don't think it really had a negative effect on me, though. Who hasn't asked one? You said you have another one. Needs a mic.
How do you manage to keep your moral values when the world has lost many of its own?
How old are you? That's a great question. Well, as I just said, we've never quit going to church, never quit reading the Bible. I myself believe, and so does my wife and my kids, we are created by God, and therefore He cares about us, and He has given us what I call the manufacturer's handbook. It's the book of instructions about how it all works, the Bible. So concentrating on those things has helped me greatly to keep things straight. Who else has a question? Okay.
Could you tell us about your family?
Oh, you don't have long enough for me to tell you about my family. It's so big. But goodness, I've got 4 daughters, and they were born 3.5 years apart. We won't get into that. No twins. It's just, I was in a hurry to have a boy, and I never had that son, but now I've got 5 grandsons and 10 granddaughters, and wonderful sons-in-law. I am really surprised that none of my grandkids yet are married. There are several of them now in college. In fact, one has graduated, 3 have graduated from college, 2 are seniors in college, and others are certain other years, and now they're in high school, graduating from high school. And not one is married. I mean, Shirley and I, when we were 23 and I graduated from college, we had all 4 kids. It's way too fast. I don't recommend that to anybody. But we were just in a hurry. I'm not sure for what, but we were in a hurry. And so we had 4 kids, never did have the son, but 5 incredible grandsons. Now, who else has a question? Yes. Now we need a microphone for you, unless you want to talk very loud.
Did anybody ever try to discourage you from being a singer?
Several music critics, I'm kidding, have tried to discourage me. I mean, like all singers, I've had a few bad reviews. Singers, that is critics, who didn't think I was doing. I tell you, one was a mistake, a tactical mistake on my part. One summer, I played Tony in West Side Story in, you know, in musical theater. It's just an experience I wanted to have. So I was playing Tony, and I heard that Leonard Bernstein, when he wrote the music for Tony in a tenor key, but he wanted a baritone, that I am, to sing the song so that he would have to sing way up here and have to strain and not sound so much like a singer. So that he was singing, there's a place for us somewhere, a place, a little high for me. But I thought, well, if that's what he wanted, that's what I'll do. So I learned the songs and I sang them, and I did, I think, a good job playing Tony. But a couple of music critics said, well, it's unfortunate, Mr. Boone has a nice voice, but these songs are out of his range. They didn't understand that, yes, they're out of my range. That's the way Leonard Bernstein wanted them. I should have just sung them in my key, and it would have been, they'd have understood it. But actually, I'm very fortunate. I haven't had really any particular discouragement. And that's, now that you ask the question and I think about it, that's pretty unusual. Now, another question? It looks like Marina has a question.
Yes, we're running out of time.
Oh, yeah.
So I would like to ask you a question. You introduced us beautifully in some of the performances that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And our group is promoting unity and the well-being of humanity.
Yes.
We wonder, what is your opinion? How important is our message?
Extremely important. Oh, this world is so unnecessarily divided. There are misunderstandings and hatreds and bigotries and dislikes for no good reason, and not enough appreciation for people's differences. To me, that's what makes the world an interesting place, is seeing people who look different, act different, talk different, eat differently, and it's an incredible adventure and a wonderful experience to just learn more and more and more about each other. And the more you learn, the more you realize that we're really all alike, in spite of the fact we may dress a little differently, may look like John Kerry's grandson on one hand or whatever. But we learn that we are really all human beings and alike. Well, kids, there's a song once, I don't know if you've ever sung it, about children learn what they live. Mm. And if children have parents who are understanding and appreciative and loving toward other people, they learn that, and then they spread it to their kids. But children have a way of touching our hearts. When I say children, maybe you think you're already too old to be called children, but young people have a way of touching people's heart and breaking down defenses like nobody else can. So while you're young, I think it's wonderful that Children of the World is an organization that is spreading love, understanding, and joy.
Thank you very much for being a guest on our show, and thank you for making a difference. We would like to present you with our CD,
I
Lightways, that
love
carries
it.
our message. Thank
We'll
you.
treasure it. You're some of
Thank
my
you very
favorite
much.
singers.
Thank you.
Thank you.